Welcome to the Produce Industry Podcast, your weekly download on current events, trends, market reports, and community discussions. Join us each week from Tampa, Florida, as we cover all aspects of the produce supply chain industry. Ladies and gentlemen, here's your host, my boy, the voice of the produce industry, Patrick Kelly.
Hey, produce people, welcome back to the Produce Industry Podcast. Yep, I know you're probably wondering, where is Juanita Gallio? I'm always wondering that too. I always say to Juanita, if you remember the show, Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego? That's Juanita. Like, where in the world is Juanita? Well, guess what? She's off today. I'm taking over the Global Fresh series because that's what we do as a community. We're here to help and build each other up. And listen, this is your weekly source for what's fresh, what's next, and what's driving global conversation in produce. And again, today I'm your host, okay, Patrick Kelly, and we're going to talk about some fun things today that we're going to get into. And one of those top things is going to be avocados. And if you're an avocado fan like I am, then you're going to enjoy this episode, especially if you are in the produce and supply chain industry today. But as always, a couple announcements before we get started. And we always got to talk about what's coming up. And on the U.S. front, even though international clients are coming in, you've got from July, the whole month, you've got OPS in Monterey, California. You've got the IFPA Food Service in Monterey, California, all leading up to all things summer as well. Because right now, if you're in the States as well, it is so hot. I mean, no matter where you are, from the Northeast to the Northwest to the South, it is extremely hot right now, everyone. So if you're looking to get a little cooler, Monterey might be the place to go for July, and going to see some pretty cool produce farms. Juanita will be on site at the IFPA Food Service event. Dan will be on site for OPS, so we will be there. And the IFPA Food Service Conference at the end of the month in July is powered by ZAG Technical Services. So quick shout out to our sponsors of the Global Fresh series, which is Peak of the Market, proudly Canadian. And guess what, everyone? I will be in Canada, Winnipeg, Manitoba, to check out some of the summer crops that are around the corner. So Peak of the Market's field cucumbers, green peppers, zucchinis that are landing, right? And it's almost time to fire up the grill, because veggies are coming fresh to help do it right in June. From crunchy cucumbers to garden fresh peppers, Peak summer lineup is nearly ready for the store shelves. And guess what? I get to be in the field to try some of these items. Juanita is coming with me. We're going to have an amazing time. And then ZAG Technical Services, everyone. So powered by this event at IFPA, booth 1107. We got to check them out. ZAG Technical Services, cybersecurity. We just heard about a cybersecurity breach. I believe it was with UNFI, and we just never know who's next. You don't know, and you probably don't even think about it. So I think that's one thing that we have to keep an eye on in our industry, is understanding what we need to do to secure our digital assets. And those digital assets can include what? Your website. It can include any documents, shared folders, clouds, everything that we use today, everyone. And that's what's so interesting. I mean, if you got your website hacked, your emails hacked, and it's happened. You can't say that you haven't been able to get into your email. And when that happens, your day goes like, you're like, what happened? What do I do? Oh my gosh, what do I do? And so get with understanding what you need to know. Minimum, get the checklist. Okay. Now, we have a cool guest on today. Someone I met many years ago. I would say a fan. I'm a fan of his. I'll let him say if he's a fan of mine. I'm not sure if he is or not, but I enjoy talking with him. I enjoy seeing him at the trade shows. I've enjoyed being a part of his career over the last couple of years. Subject matter expert in avocados. So avocados is going to be our subject today, everyone. I know you're like, whoa, where are we going with this? So whether you're a fan of the creamy texture, the rich flavor, or the health benefits, there's no doubt avocados have earned their place at the top of the produce chain. They have. And if you're not a fan of avocados, Well, maybe you're a buyer. Well, it's always great to know. So today we are going to talk about the avocados international journey into the U.S. market, as well as some of the complementing markets that we have in the U.S. We're going to explore different maybe varieties, major producing regions, and the supply chain that brings this super fruit to your plate year round. I know, right? Because we all love it. And I said fruit. So if you're out there and you're maybe a consumer and you're like, wait, isn't that a vegetable? Is it a fruit? We'll let our expert answer that today, okay? And then later in the show, we're going to zero in on one country that's becoming a rising star in the avocado game, okay? And that's Colombia. Did you notice? I mean, I've even repped today with the international Colombia jersey, everyone. I'm bringing it all to you. And I'll be joined by our special guest, an avocado expert, Manuel Michel, to talk about Colombia's growing role in supplying high quality avocados to the United States. But before all of this, okay, we're going to hear from a quick sponsor. And then when we get back, we're going to talk a little bit about the global avocado overview. We're talking about varieties of avocados and the logistics, and then talk to our subject matter expert. So let's hear a quick break from a sponsor, and we will be right back.
120 years ago, in Groningen, the Netherlands, a small produce business began, trading fresh local fruits. By the 1930s, the Vandenberg family moved to Rotterdam, Europe's burgeoning fruit hub. But when the 1940s brought turmoil, they fled to America, rebuilding their legacy in fresh produce. In 1958, Jack Vandenberg became a trailblazer, importing fresh Chilean fruit to the US, opening doors to global flavors. Today, that spirit of growth and innovation continues, with sustainable packaging, carbon footprint tracking, and the finest fruit varieties. We're redefining freshness for the future. Family, fresh, innovation, celebrating a legacy 120 years in the making. This is Jack Vandenberg.
That's right, everyone. Dynamite sponsors bringing dynamite content to the produce and supply chain industry. I love hearing that. The history of Jack Vandenberg. Did we hire David Attenborough to do this from Planet Earth? We'll have to ask John Papp on that one. I love seeing the history of fresh produce. I love seeing immigrants come to this country, just like my father is an immigrant from Canada that has come to this country and has just provided, one, a better life for our families, but two, provided products to the United States that have worked, that have been so fortunate to be part of this growing community of immigrants. And I mean, look, John Papp and the Vandenbergs, over 100 years. And it's amazing. And it's imports, right? And that's the thing we're going to talk about today is going to be imports as well. So always great to hear from Dynamite sponsors, everyone. But let's get into this. I really want to kind of give a quick overview because I believe our subject matter expert will have a lot to say on the matter and, give us some real-time updates, everyone, because I think that's the main thing is when you listen to the show, I want to make sure that you're getting value out of this. I don't want you to say, oh, it's just another podcast. No, we're here to grow this community together, and we're here to build out information, education, and resources to help you make better informed decisions while marketing and advertising the industry that we know and love. So let's start with the global picture, everyone. The United States is, one of the largest consumers of avocados in the world. Okay, per capita consumption has more than doubled over the past 15 years, and now people are eating over 8 pounds per person per year. I double or triple that quote. I just want everybody to know. Okay. We have avocados stapled in the house all the time. We've got guacamole cups. We are an avocado family. And again, if you know my history in San Diego, when we grew up, we had a little spot in Vista, I always say, had a couple avocado trees on it, had some kumquat trees on it, had a couple apple trees, which my dad always tells me, do not forget. But I'm an avocado lover, always have been, always will be. But the demand now is supported by a global supply chain. Did you know that? What about the key players? Mexico, we've all seen it, okay? It's an undisputed leader. Mexico supplies around 80% of avocados consumed in the U.S. Now, let me tell you this, everyone. This is not my opinion. This is research that I've gathered. And again, we will let our subject matter expert jump in if there's any data that he thinks is skewed. That's what we're open for, that communication. Now, the state of Michoacan is the region certified to export year-round into the U.S. market. Okay, now let's move to Peru. Peru is a seasonal backup. They ship primarily during the summer months, helping fill gaps in Mexico and off-season productions. You might have seen that. And then there's Colombia. Well, we'll talk more about this soon, so hang tight, because Colombia is an emerging force in the avocado world, and especially with the Hass avocado. Okay, the proximity to the U.S. and expanding growing regions make their country worth the watch. Okay, and then there's other countries that have avocados like Chile and Dominican and Kenya and Tanzania. There's reach all over the world that brings not just avocados to the U.S., but offers this green shape variety, right? Such as the Dominican that we see in South Florida. These are things that I get. They have less oil content, or they have more oil content, right? They go in salads, they're more food service, but they're still in the grocery stores, right? So there's so many avocados that are out there that maybe you didn't know of, okay? Now let's talk about some of those varieties, because it is not just about the Hass avocado, and a lot of people know the Hass. And if you listen to the podcast on Fresh from the Field Fridays, Dan actually talks about the history of the Hass avocado and goes into how it was named, where it came from. And the Hass avocado, they say, is the king, okay? With its pebbly skin and rich flavor, it accounts for over 95% of avocados sold in the U.S., and we're going to see if that is correct. But there are other varieties. Maybe you've heard them. Maybe they're no longer in existence. Maybe they're old varieties or even new varieties. The Fuerte variety, a hybrid variety that is grown in California or Mexico. I've never heard of the bacon variety. Nope. That's not kind of a bacon. It says these are mild green-skinned avocados, often used for early season harvest. And then the Reed avocado, the Zutana avocado, the Gem avocado. I just actually saw the Gem avocado for the first time at an Albertsons. And was it a gem? I'll let you decide. It's in one of our videos, on our short videos. If you watch our short videos on YouTube, you'll catch the Gem avocado. And again, I mentioned those green skin varieties from the Dominican Republic. What about Florida? Did you know that? Larger, more watery, and sometimes preferred in the Caribbean and Central American communities. So we see them. So again, when I moved to Florida in 2019, I had never seen these huge, big green avocados, because in California, we traditionally didn't see those, right? Just like we didn't see as much Florida citrus over there. There's only so many sections that you can get through. Now, how do avocados get to the U.S.? No. They're not carried in by a stork. I know what you were thinking, but they're not. Importing avocados into the U.S., it is a highly regulated, time-sensitive process. Countries must meet USDA, APHIS guidelines, and must have certified regions and packers that participate in this, okay? So there's things that once harvests of avocados are picked, packed, ready, pre-cooled and packed near the farm has to be done. They're shipped via ocean or truck, depending on the distance. They got to clear ports, right? Like Philadelphia, Long Beach, all across the world, right? They've got to clear ports. Now, they also, depending on how you bring it in, sent to ripening facilities in the U.S., okay? And we've seen some of those ripening facilities on the Produce Industry Podcast, because I have visited Mission Avocados in Texas to see their ripening rooms, their ripening facility that they put in. And so that's one thing too that has to go through this. So shelf life, consistency, and timing are everything, especially with consumer expectations so high, everyone. Yeah, I know, right? But where is your avocado coming from? And that's where we want to really delve into today is Colombian avocados. These avocados from Colombia. Did you know they're in your grocery stores? Did you know They're smooth, they're creamy, and they're ready for you to cut and make items just like every other avocado that you purchase. But we want to talk about that, right? Because sometimes we don't understand that, or we don't see the label, or we think it's local. But did you know that it could complement another season to make sure that you have the same quality, the best tasting avocado year round, right? And that's why we use complementing seasons. And that's what's so great about it. So Colombian avocados into the USA. And I want to give a quick overview real quick. Then we'll take our last break, and then we'll bring Manuel on to talk a little bit more. And as we shift our gears and focus to Colombia, Colombia was approved to export avocados to the US. In my research, it was around 2017, and we're going to get that confirmed. And then they've made major strides. And why Colombia? Okay, let's think about that. It's located along the equator, which means 2 main harvest seasons per year. The country has invested heavily in the infrastructure, quality control, and sustainable practices. And it's building strong partnerships with retailers and food service operators here in the United States. So Colombia is now one of the top 5 exporters, I believe, into the US. And the growth trajectory is only going up. We're seeing it. And that's where our guest is going to give us some more insight on this. So everyone, let's go ahead, take that last break, hear from a sponsor, and then bring our guest on. So we'll be right back.
Zeg Technical Services, we do many things. Managed services for IT needs, including consulting. Another area of expertise for us is cybersecurity, making sure that there's awareness and risk prevention. And then the final piece is the data and software services, where whether it's software automation, data management, even AI, we have things that we can do to help your business. Those are core components that your company relies on. So we have a rich history of being able to manage these IT services so that you don't have to worry about them. You trust us so that we keep your operations going and your business going ultimately. When we talk about what AI can do for you and the time savings, even though you don't think you have something that you can just put AI in, you probably do if you have a business case that could be benefited from automation or efficiencies that are brought in. We can trust AI to do those things, and the beauty of that is you can free up time for your employees to do more meaningful work. So even if you think you may not benefit, I think it's worth a conversation because you will be surprised. We'll walk you through every step of the way, and we're here to help.
All right, everyone, welcome back. We are back. We're talking about avocados, and we're going to talk with a subject matter expert. Super excited to be talking about avocados from Colombia today because it helps build out my knowledge on the supply chain and who, when, why are we bringing these products in. Now, it's crazy with the I would say the geopolitical turmoil that we're going through with tariffs, with all kinds of things that are happening. It's important to know our supply chains, okay? And I think that's what's so great about it. And let's bring on our subject matter expert today, Mr. Manuel Michel from Avocados from Colombia.
Hey, Patrick, how are you? Great to be with you.
Great to see you, man. I'm hoping I did justice for the avocado community.
I think you did.
Okay.
You learned quite a bit. I'm impressed by the knowledge you already have shared with the audience.
Listen, our goal is to bring a new level of understanding to this, right? Because I remember when I was reached out to and they said avocados from Colombia. And I remember us talking to you when you transitioned from the National Mango Board as well. And again, even myself, I've learned so much, Manuel, over the years, right? Because I didn't know this kind of stuff. I didn't even know all these different varieties. I knew that we had a Haas avocado in our backyard, right? But I didn't know. I mean, I thought, okay, California and Mexico, that's what, if I was a consumer, that's what I think. And I don't think people understand that there's so much more, right?
Exactly. And what you're talking about, Patrick, is the beauty about the produce industry, that there are so many options out there, depending on whatever fruit or vegetable you prefer. And that availability throughout the year is what makes the produce industry such a great supplier for you as consumers. And then consumers get to decide what they prefer, and then that develops even more demand for different commodities or specific varieties within each fruit or vegetable. So in the case of Colombian avocados, like you mentioned a few minutes ago, it's one of the regions or countries that's supplying the U.S. market most recently. And we're growing. There's a lot of exciting movement within Colombia Avocados, and we're excited to share more with you.
And I think that's pretty cool because, again, I love that you said that too. I love the produce industry. And let's kind of get into it because I think most people don't understand or know that. I mean, can you tell us a little bit about the Colombian avocados, right? Their uniqueness. I mean, maybe their growing practices or like their trade regions. Like we know where avocados from Mexico come from. Them. Where do avocados from Colombia come from? And why are they such growing in demand right now for the U.S. consumers, right?
Yes. So with Colombia, we started producing avocados there about a couple decades ago. In the beginning, it was slow, but it was approved for import into the U.S. in 2017. And then we started developing that demand. It wasn't until 2-3 years ago where we've started to make a larger impact here in the U.S. So going back to 2023, the volume that was imported from Colombia was around 20-30 million pounds. Last year, it grew to 80 million pounds. This year, we're on track to reach 150 million pounds. So each year, we're doubling the volume being exported to the U.S. The other avocados produced in Colombia, most of them end up going to the European market, but there is definitely an advantage of coming to the U.S., especially the East Coast. We have some really fast shipping lanes that can reach the East Coast, Florida in 3 days, or up to the Northeast, Philadelphia in 5 days. So that is a huge advantage for Colombia. And the rich, creamy flavor that avocados from Colombia have is another part of what is attracting a lot of attention for Colombia. The regions where avocados from Colombia are grown is in the central part, up in the mountains. And so if you're familiar with Colombia, it's close to the equator. We have tropical climates there, which is both a blessing and a curse because the rain that we get throughout the year feeds the orchards, but then you also have to use different management practices to make sure that the quality stays high. But in the end, the result from having that rich soil, high elevations, rain throughout the year produces a high quality avocado that's rich and creamy. And so we're focusing on that and delivering that message here to U.S. consumers. And then another key point out of Colombia is that the country is very focused on sustainability and responsible farming practices. So that's another area that we're highlighting. And as part of the Colombia Avocado Board, we've been doing a lot more marketing and promotions as the volume has been increasing. So for this next fall, coming here in the next few months, we've got a lot more marketing programs that we're developing, a lot more outreach and working with retailers and food service to continue to raise that demand, not just for Colombian avocados, but for avocados in general.
I think that's amazing. I think I love that the plan, right? I love that you're working with complementary growing seasons. One question I wonder, and I have two. One, I got to figure out where I can get some Colombia avocados here in Tampa, Florida. Two, how or what is the feedback from the U.S. market? How are they responding to Colombian fruit? Have you had any feedback from ripeners or even retailers yet?
Oh, definitely. We're in constant contact with importers and with retailers. It's been a learning curve, to say the least. When we first started importing avocados from Colombia, it's a different piece of fruit from any other region because of the growing conditions. The dry matter can vary. And so you've got to get the perfect avocado packed and sent to the U.S. Even when it gets here, the way you're ripening is different than, say, an avocado from Mexico or California. So it's been a learning curve, but we've been working with the industry, and each season we make strides. As you mentioned a while ago, there are two main growing seasons in Colombia. So each one of those seasons is a little bit different. We've got the main season that runs from about October through March, and then the secondary season is from about April to August, September. And the avocado is different, and we're learning that you have to manage it in a different manner each time you receive it. So we've been working with the importers, with ripeners, with the retailers to make sure that they're treating Colombian avocados the way they need to be treated. And when everything comes together perfectly, you get a great piece of fruit. And so over the last year, we've had a lot of great experience, and feedback from the retailers has been very positive. And we're continuing to develop that each season. And the volume has also been increasing. As I mentioned, we've doubled the volume over the last year. And we set up a 3-year strategic plan, and we're going to be growing the industry here until the year 2029, 2030. We plan to reach as high as 350 million pounds per year. So we're at about 150 this year. So we'll continue to see some growth over the next 2-3 years. And all that is because of the demand that we see here in the U.S. Avocados continue to grow, and there's more concentration of consumption on the West Coast of the U.S. And part of the reason it hasn't grown as fast on the East Coast is because not as much volume is reaching the East Coast. So definitely we see that as an advantage for Colombia, that there's already a demand and there's room to continue to grow that demand on the East Coast.
That's awesome. I mean, seriously, because when you look at the consumer aspect, is a lot of times we think, in the US, we're like, no, we want US, we want local. And there's different. There's local, there's hyper local. Someone asked me that the other day. They're like, what's hyper local? I said, well, hyper local is like your legitimate, like maybe it's a 20-acre CEA farm that produces directly for a retailer. There's local, which could be like fresh from Florida or citrus from California. Right. And then when those seasons are out, we bring in another complementary item, and it works, right? Because the consumers still want it. And I always say this, could you imagine if we stopped marketing like avocados or citrus for 3 months just because we weren't allowed to bring it in? I always say, Manuel, people will change their habits. It only takes, and they say it normally takes 30 days to change someone's habit, like consistent 30 days. So you can imagine if we didn't promote or bring in avocados for 30 days, or if a retailer didn't have avocados for 90 days. I mean, could you imagine how the consumer would shift their preferences and start buying something else? They will. So it's great to see that you got the plan all the way out through 2029. Now, the things that I think I say people because the people that listen to this podcast are either in the business or they've stumbled on wanting to learn more about produce. Okay. So as the demand is growing, right, quality is hitting key points. How is that? I would say, because listen, you've got the Californians that really promote California avocados. You've got I always say that market leader, because Avocados from Mexico has this huge platform for marketing. And now I've seen the consumers, you're saying consumers have taken it, retailers have taken it, right? And you've also, because you said it, you've also gotten with the industry. How do the other growing regions feel about avocados from Colombia?
Well, within the avocado industry, we're unique in the sense that our marketing and promotion programs are general with the Haas Avocado Board, but then each one of the growing regions does marketing specifically for their country or their region. And so in the end, we all work together. We meet quarterly to learn about what's going on within the industry, what the volumes are, what research Haas Avocado Board is doing and how we can support them. So as an industry, we're all working together to increase avocado consumption. But then each one of us individually are focused on increasing our own market share. And so as Colombia comes into the picture, we offer a new region for importers and retailers. And at the end of the day, you want to have a diversified supply chain. You never know when you may have issues, whether it's weather related or anything else. And so to have that steady, consistent flow of any produce item, you need to have a diversified supply chain. And Colombia Avocados, since we provide avocados throughout the year, we are a good option. We can supply whether the retailer has a preference for a specific type of avocado or a certain region. It's important to have diversity in the supply. And so that's what Colombia offers in having year-round supply. And especially if you look, as I mentioned, the East Coast is where we can get there. And that's where we have been focused on providing more information, more education to the retailers on the East Coast. We're starting to see some demand start to filter over into the Midwest and even into the South Central part of the U.S. Just because of the quality that Colombia offers and the year-round availability. It makes it a great option for the industry. So that's what we're focused on right now. And as our volumes continue to increase, it'll open up even more doors. Eventually you will see Colombian avocados throughout the U.S. It's probably going to take us 2-3 years to get to that point. But the main reason, again, is that friendly competition, that healthy competition that you have amongst all the supplying regions. And in the end, if you can grow the consumption of avocados, everybody wins, including
that I agree with. You're 100% right, because it's funny. And I asked that question because I just went to my first Florida Citrus mutual committee meeting, and it was interesting to see. We had Californians there, you had juicers there, you had Brazilians there, you had so many different aspects of the industry there that were all there to work together. Were we all competitors? Yep. Were we all friends? Yep. You know what I mean? But the goal was how do we make a new Florida citrus industry, right? Because Florida citrus is dying, right? The HLB, the bug is just completely killing the Florida citrus industry. But we all have to come together, because globally it'll affect. If there's zero citrus in Florida, it'll affect the global supply chain. That means more Brazilian juice will come in. Maybe we'll need more Argentina. Maybe Europe will have to start increasing their demand because they're not able to get Florida juice anymore, or California. So everything affects each other. I always talk about that being like the circle of life. I relate everything back to the Lion King, man. I'm like, listen, circle of life, right? The antelope eat the grass, right? The lion eat the antelope, right? Just you go over, and then the worms eat the soil. So it's like the same thing with this is fruit, right? This is fruits and vegetables that we're growing. So it's part of that circle of life. I mean, it really is.
Definitely, everything's interconnected, Patrick. And the longer you're in the industry, the more you realize that. And we're very fortunate, blessed to have such a diverse supply chain of any fruit and vegetable that we want here in the U.S. You were mentioning, in the past, we would have certain time periods where you wouldn't have certain types of fruits and vegetables. And that's not that long ago. You and I aren't that old. We're getting older, but, I can remember years past where you would only have avocados during a very limited window of the year, or mangoes, or any other fruit for that matter. And so the more sophisticated the produce industry has become, the more we can supply what consumers want. And so that's something that we shouldn't take for granted. And it takes all of us to make that a reality.
Yeah, no, you're so right. Because I remember back in 2000, I'm going to say 13, I was living in California. I flew to Florida to meet with the International Pineapple Organization Committee. I go to a restaurant and I ask for a club sandwich, and I say, "May I have avocado on that?" And she goes, "I'm sorry?" And I said, "I'll have avocado." And she goes, "We don't have avocado." I said, What do you mean? I have avocado on every single one of my sandwiches." And again, that was not long ago. So yeah, the supply chains have diversified. We're bringing more fruit in, and that was crazy, right? That how could you go now? You asked for avocado in Florida, you got it, right? But you're right. It wasn't that long ago, not even a decade ago, that you couldn't even get avocados certain times of the year. So as we start to wrap this up, because I want to make sure, I always say, Manuel, when people listen to the podcast, they're normally on their way to work, they're in a tractor, and we want to make sure that we get their time and information to them and their time back to them. So as we start to wrap this up, there's a lot in store. Like you said, you're constantly and continuing the mission of driving avocados from Colombia, driving the growth, driving consumption, because it's just going to help everybody else. What are two key takeaways that you can give the industry, whether they're a buyer, operations, or a CEO level, if they're thinking about bringing this on to their table, right? Their platform, their retail operations, what would you let them know?
Well, visit our website. We have a website, avocadoscolombia.com. We're revamping it at this moment, but it has a lot of great information. It has a list of who the suppliers are, whether you want to source directly from the country or from importers here in the U.S. And remember that Colombia can supply avocados throughout the year. Our volumes are still small, but they're growing year after year. And we definitely have an advantage to the East Coast with really fast shipping routes to ports in Florida or up to the Northeast. So as you look to diversify your avocado supply chain, think about Colombia.
I like that. And everyone, I would say my key takeaways is do your research, right? Do you get educated on everything, right? So if you got a supply calendar of avocados and you're an avocado distributor, see why you don't have avocados from Colombia yet. Understand how it can affect your supply chain, okay? Because again, in the time that we're in, right? Diversification. I love that you said it, like, let's not put all of our eggs in one basket. That's like an old saying, but it still lives true to this day. Because again, if everybody was to say, we're only going to do avocados from California, right? Not everybody would get all the avocados in their store. It'd be very limited supply. And then you'd have a case where I'm trying to get a club sandwich in Florida and not get an avocado, right? So I think that's a key takeaway for me, is that we need more people in our industry to understand that it's just not another import, right? It's just not something that we're trying to load and pump on the shelves to make profit, everyone. We're doing this to make sure that there's an adequate supply chain, quality, flavor, and that the consumers have asked to bring this forward. And I always say this, Manuel, remember, the USA is a land of immigrants, okay? So living in Florida, and you're going to laugh. You can if you want. But so my wife is Hispanic. I married she's half Mexican, half Puerto Rican. But it's funny watching my son now. My son's of age where he has a girlfriend now, and his girlfriend is Colombian. So we in Florida have a lot of immigrants as well that come in from the Dominican Republic, from Colombia, that are second, third, fourth generation, right? Heck, one of our sponsors, Albert Perez, right? A background of Cuba coming to the States, right? Like, think about it, right? Like, and you know our buddy Albert Perez of Continental Fresh. Like, think about that. I mean, we are a nation of immigrants, and being immigrants, right? And my dad being one of them, that also sets demand. Am I right? Because they also want to see some of the items that they're accustomed to and that they see as well. So I always say that too, right? You got to look at the demographics. You got to understand the market. Any final thoughts?
No, I love what you're sharing here, Patrick. So with immigrants, they have their preferences in food and produce. And they're looking for that as they settle in any part of the world. And then as they bring in those new produce items or the foods, they introduce them to local communities. And if the local communities love that new food, then it continues to grow. And so we see a lot of examples of how the produce industry has developed in the last, say, 20 years because of that aspect. And then at the same time, we've got great opportunities here in the U.S. where we can export what we produce here out to other countries. So it's a big melting pot. Everybody gets what they prefer, what they like the best, and having it available throughout the year makes them happier. So that's what we're all about.
Hey, putting smiles on people's faces. Manuel, it was great to have you on the show today. As Dan, the produce man, says, it's always best when you get it fresh. And as we say on the Global Fresh series, we will see you in the fields and on the horizon. And hey, we'll probably see you at the next trade show. So thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Patrick.